The glittering lights of a major awards show cast a brilliant glow over the red carpet, where photographers scream for attention and flashbulbs create a dazzling mosaic of artificial lightning. Walking hand in hand through this chaotic gauntlet of modern celebrity, they always seemed like the ultimate definition of an unbreakable partnership. He was the rough-around-the-edges troubadour who had risen from the absolute rock bottom of society to claim his throne at the pinnacle of the music industry, and she was the fierce, stunning force of nature who had stood right by his side when he had absolutely nothing to his name. To the casual observer watching from the comfort of a glowing smartphone screen or a television set, their romance appeared to be a flawless modern fairy tale, a story of two matching souls who had braved the harshest storms together and emerged victorious on the wealthy, secure shores of global fame. The public absolutely adored them because they represented something incredibly rare in the often manufactured and highly sanitized world of entertainment, showing off a raw, unfiltered authenticity that proved that true love could survive even the most harrowing personal histories. People looked at their passionate public displays of affection, their mutual declarations of undying loyalty on social media, and their shared laughter during high-profile interviews, believing that if any couple in Hollywood could withstand the brutal pressures of the spotlight, it would undoubtedly be this particular pair. However, behind that magnificent facade of absolute unity and triumphant success, a much more complicated and deeply heartbreaking reality was quietly unfolding in the shadows of their magnificent Tennessee estate. It is a sobering reminder that the very same forces that propel an artist to the stratosphere of public adoration can simultaneously place an unbearable strain on the foundational pillars of a marriage. As we begin to peel back the layers of this fascinating and tragic Hollywood narrative, it becomes clear that the public narrative was merely a beautiful mask covering a growing chasm that had been widening between them for months, if not years. If you want to stay updated on the deepest secrets behind the lives of your favorite stars and ensure you never miss an exclusive breakdown of the industry's biggest stories, please take a quick moment right now to hit that subscribe button. Turn on your notifications and join our rapidly growing community of entertainment insiders. Now, as we dive deeper into the world of high-stakes celebrity relationships, we must look closely at how the dizzying height of sudden monumental success can change the very chemistry of a romance. When two people meet in the absolute depths of obscurity and bond over a shared history of survival, their connection is often forged in the fires of mutual adversity, creating an intense dependency that feels completely indestructible at the time. They were each other's sanctuary when the rest of the world refused to look their way, building a life out of shared dreams and a stubborn refusal to break under the weight of their respective pasts. But the true test of such a bond often arrives not during the lean, difficult years of struggle, but rather when the universe finally opens the floodgates of immense wealth, critical acclaim, and relentless public attention. It is a well-documented phenomenon in the entertainment industry that massive career explosions act as a powerful catalyst, accelerating personal growth and shifting priorities in ways that neither partner could have ever anticipated when they first exchanged vows. What happens when the shared ground that once held you together begins to shift beneath your feet, and the trajectory of your individual journeys starts pulling you toward entirely different horizons? The tension that eventually tore this beloved couple apart did not manifest overnight in a single explosive argument or a sudden, dramatic betrayal that shattered their world in an instant. Instead, it was a slow, agonizingly quiet erosion of alignment. A gradual realization that the lives they were building independently were becoming increasingly impossible to reconcile with the marriage they had promised to cherish forever. Friends and industry insiders who observed them closely behind closed doors began to notice subtle shifts in their daily dynamics, small hints that the harmonious rhythm they once shared was being replaced by a heavy, unexpressed friction. As one partner began to feel a profound internal calling toward a deeply reflective, faith-centered existence focused on long-term legacy and personal healing, the other remained fiercely committed to the bold, provocative, and unapologetically loud brand that had brought them initial fame and served as their authentic artistic voice. There is a tragic irony in the fact that the exact qualities that make an individual magnetic to millions of fans can sometimes become the very source of alienation within the quiet confines of their own home. It is a delicate balance that few marriages can successfully navigate, especially when the eyes of the entire world are watching every single move, waiting for the slightest misstep or sign of vulnerability. The pressure of constant public scrutiny acts like a massive magnifying glass, turning minor disagreements into catastrophic headlines and making it nearly impossible for a husband and wife to heal their private wounds without the interference of outside opinions. As the months rolled on, the contrast between their evolving identities grew starker and more defined, creating an invisible wall between two people who still shared an immense amount of deep affection for one another. It became a question of individual evolution versus marital preservation, a heartbreaking dilemma where choosing oneself inherently meant drifting away from the person who had been your anchor during the darkest days of your life. The story of their unraveling is not a simple tale of right and wrong, nor is it a narrative where one person can be easily blamed for the ultimate demise of the relationship. Rather, it is a profoundly human chronicle of two individuals who simply grew up and grew apart under the most intense, unnatural conditions imaginable. The tragedy lies in the absolute truth that you can love someone with every fiber of your being and still recognize that your futures are no longer compatible, that the paths you must walk to find true personal peace are leading to entirely different destinations. As we prepare to explore the specific events, the private conversations, and the sudden legal actions that finally brought this hidden marital crisis into the harsh light of day, we are forced to confront the fragile nature of love in the modern age of celebrity stardom. The illusion of absolute marital bliss completely shattered in the spring of 26, leaving fans across the globe in a state of absolute disbelief as the cold, unyielding reality of legal documents brought a sudden end to a legendary romance. It was on a quiet Monday that the public learned Jason Bradley DeFord, the celebrated country music sensation known to the world as Jelly Roll, had officially filed for divorce from his wife of nearly a decade, Alisa Andrea Carter. Known to millions of loyal followers as Bunnie Xo, the official legal paperwork, quietly submitted to the court clerk in Williamson County, Tennessee, pointed to the standard, sterile legal phrase of irreconcilable differences as the underlying cause for the dissolution of their high-profile marriage. This legal action was not a sudden, impulsive decision made in the heat of a single argument, but rather the culmination of years of quiet fracture that had been steadily building behind the closed doors of their shared southern residence. For those who had closely followed their meteoric rise from the underground music scene to the absolute peak of mainstream commercial success, the news felt like a sudden physical blow, completely upending the narrative of the unstoppable, ride-or-die couple that had defined their public identity. Just days before the official filing became public knowledge, a massive moving truck was spotted idling outside their beautiful, sprawling Tennessee estate, with workers quietly loading boxes and furniture into the cargo hold. A somber visual confirmation that the domestic kingdom they had built together was being actively dismantled. The timeline of the legal filing revealed that the country singer had actually initiated the divorce proceedings back on May 18th, meaning that the couple had been secretly navigating the painful initial stages of their legal separation for weeks while maintaining a brave, silent front for the public eye. The contrast between their private heartbreak and their public obligations grew increasingly painful as the days went on, creating an unbearable amount of emotional tension for both individuals as they tried to process the death of their marriage under the relentless gaze of the media. Just hours before the news of the divorce filing sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry, Bunnie Xo had taken to her highly popular social media platforms to share an incredibly provocative and racy photograph of herself, clad in vibrant pink satin lingerie while sitting on her knees on a plush brown leather couch. Atop the striking, defiant image, the prominent host of the Dumb Blonde podcast had written a brief but highly telling caption stating that she was finally getting her sparkle back, a phrase that many fans now interpret as a clear, retroactive signal that she was already preparing herself mentally and emotionally for the public storm that was about to erupt. The striking contrast between her bold, unapologetic online presence and the heavy emotional weight of a crumbling marriage perfectly illustrated the profound division that had been growing between the two partners for an extended period of time. Sources close to the situation began to reveal that the primary source of friction within the relationship stemmed from the drastically different directions their individual lives and personal brands had been taking over the last few years. As Jelly Roll experienced a massive, unprecedented career explosion that transformed him from an underground cult figure into a mainstream musical icon, his internal priorities began to undergo a profound radical transformation. The singer began to focus intensely on his physical health, a deeply rooted faith-centered lifestyle, the well-being of his family, and the long-term positive legacy he wanted to leave behind for future generations after surviving a turbulent youth marked by incarceration and addiction. On the other side of the domestic divide, Bunnie Xo remained deeply committed to building and maintaining the outspoken, highly provocative, and fiercely independent brand that had always been entirely authentic to her identity and had initially attracted her massive, dedicated fan base. While the country star had always deeply admired his wife's complete refusal to apologize for who she was, insiders noted that it became increasingly difficult for him to reconcile her highly sexualized, unfiltered public persona with the quiet, reflective, and spiritually focused life he envisioned for their collective future. This fundamental misalignment created a persistent, simmering tension that began to erode the very foundation of their daily connection, making it feel as though they were two completely different entities trying to exist within a single space. Furthermore, the couple had been engaging in a series of incredibly difficult, emotionally draining conversations regarding the expansion of their family through the complex and taxing process of in vitro fertilization. Earlier that year, Bunnie had spoken openly with her audience about their ongoing efforts to conceive a child together, a journey that brought its own unique set of profound emotional challenges, physical demands, and deep vulnerabilities. These sensitive discussions about expanding their family, managing the delicate timing of medical procedures, and aligning their individual desires for the future became infinitely more complicated as the singer's touring schedule exploded and his professional obligations demanded every single ounce of his available time and energy. The sheer pressure of his sudden, monumental fame, combined with the constant, invasive scrutiny of the public eye, acted as a massive amplifier for every single unresolved issue that had lingered from the earlier, highly turbulent years of their marriage. Longtime followers of the couple remember that their relationship had survived significant trials in the past, including a brief but incredibly painful separation in 2018 after the country singer engaged in a months-long extramarital affair that severely damaged the trust between them. Although they had both worked incredibly hard to overcome that betrayal, attending therapy and openly discussing their healing process, the deep-seated trust issues and emotional scars from that period remained a quiet, sensitive vulnerability that would occasionally resurface during times of intense stress. When the initial honeymoon phase of their massive wealth and mainstream success began to fade into the routine grind of constant touring, corporate obligations, and relentless media appearances, they found themselves trapped in a frustrating cycle, having the exact same emotionally exhausting conversations over and over again without ever finding a permanent resolution. The deep sadness permeating the situation is highlighted by the undeniable fact that Bunnie Xo had been his absolute rock, standing resolutely by his side through every single obstacle long before the world knew his name, before the prestigious awards, and before the massive sold-out arena shows. She had chosen to stay through some incredibly dark, financially devastating, and emotionally harrowing periods that would have easily caused the immediate demise of most modern marriages. This shared history of surviving the absolute worst conditions made the ultimate breakdown of their marriage feel even more tragic to those who knew them best, proving that even the most resilient bonds can eventually snap under the weight of shifting identities and fame. To truly understand the profound depth of this heartbreak and why this split has sent such massive shockwaves through the entire fabric of the entertainment world, one must journey back to the very beginning of their extraordinary and highly unconventional love story. Their paths first crossed in the summer of 2015, a time when Jason Bradley DeFord was still a struggling independent artist, desperately trying to find his voice and an audience while performing at small, packed venues across the country. It was after one of these raw, high-energy live concerts that he met Alisa Andrea Carter, a woman who immediately matched his fierce intensity and understood the rough, uncompromising world from which he had emerged. They came from remarkably similar backgrounds, both having survived incredibly difficult personal circumstances, systemic hardships, and turbulent youths that left them with deep emotional scars but also a fierce, unyielding drive to conquer life on their own terms. This shared baseline of survival created an instant, electric bond between them, a profound feeling that they had found the only other person in the world who could truly comprehend their individual pasts without judgment. Their connection was so immediate and overwhelming that just 1 year later, in August of 2016, the country singer made the impulsive, passionate decision to propose to her on the exact same night that they were out celebrating in Las Vegas. Without a single moment of hesitation or traditional planning, the couple immediately rushed over to a local Las Vegas courthouse in the dead of night, secretly tying the knot in a quick, unvarnished ceremony that perfectly reflected their wild, spontaneous, and intensely passionate approach to life. They did not need a massive, expensive celebration or the validation of a traditional wedding because they had each other, a matching pair of outlaws ready to take on the world together. For years, that spontaneous courthouse wedding was the beautiful foundation of their shared universe, a symbol of their absolute devotion to a marriage that was built entirely on their own unique rules. As the years rolled on, their partnership only seemed to grow stronger as they successfully integrated their lives. With Bunnie seamlessly stepping into the vital and incredibly deeply meaningful role of a dedicated stepmother to his 2 children from previous relationships, his daughter Bailey Ann and his young son Noah Buddy. She did not just occupy a space in his house, she became a foundational pillar of his family, providing stability, fierce protection, and maternal love to children who desperately needed a secure environment while their father fought to build a viable career in the music industry. The family unit they created was tight-knit, fiercely loyal, and completely supportive of one another, making their recent separation feel like a devastating rupture that extends far beyond just the 2 individuals who signed the divorce papers. In 2023, when his career was finally beginning to shift into high gear and the rewards of their long struggle were starting to materialize, they made the beautiful decision to publicly renew their wedding vows. A grand gesture intended to symbolize their transition from the dark struggles of their past into a bright, prosperous, and secure future together. It was a celebration of survival, a public statement to their millions of fans that despite the massive changes happening in their outer world, the core of their love remained completely unchanged. However, looking back with the bittersweet clarity of hindsight, that beautiful vow renewal may have actually been a desperate attempt to anchor a relationship that was already beginning to feel the immense, invisible strains of their rapidly changing realities. The tragic reality of their situation underscores a phenomenon that many rising stars face but few talk about openly, which is that the very journey required to achieve global stardom can completely alter the internal makeup of the person pursuing it. Over the last few years, the singer underwent a massive personal evolution, completely transforming his daily life, cleaning up his habits, focusing deeply on spiritual health, and dedicating himself to leaving a lasting, positive impact on society through his music and philanthropy. This beautiful, necessary transformation was essential for his survival and his artistry, but it inevitably meant that he was no longer the same exact man who had rushed into that Las Vegas courthouse in 2016. While he shifted toward a quiet, faith-centered existence, his wife remained steadfastly loyal to the bold, provocative, and highly independent identity that she had worked so hard to build for herself. She had created an incredibly successful empire with her podcast, empowering millions of women by being completely unfiltered, unashamed, and unapologetically herself. Her brand was built on the exact opposite of quiet reflection. It was loud, proud, and beautifully disruptive. The tragedy is that neither of them was wrong for choosing to stay true to their individual evolutions. They were simply 2 powerful forces of nature whose paths, after running parallel through the darkest valleys, began to diverge as they climbed different peaks of the exact same mountain. The public is left to mourn the loss of a relationship that stood as a rare beacon of raw authenticity in a highly manufactured industry, a reminder that fame can demand the highest, most painful price from those who achieve it. As they move forward into their separate futures, navigating the painful legalities of asset division and the emotional reordering of their lives, the legacy of what they built together will undoubtedly linger in his music and her commentary for years to come. Representatives for both individuals have remained completely silent, refusing to offer generic statements to the press, allowing the heavy, dignified silence of the legal documents to speak for itself. The moving truck parked outside their Tennessee home stands as a quiet, definitive monument to the end of an era, a visual realization that the beautiful, chaotic, and deeply passionate chapter of Jelly Roll and Bunnie Xo has officially come to a close, leaving behind a timeless story of love, survival, and the unavoidable, heartbreaking cost of personal growth.